uh, it would give people, I think, a particular flavor if maybe you could tell a story of some of the challenges you've seen in play and having it work. The different vested interests that. I know you've traveled. You went to Australia. You even lived in Tasmania years ago.
I did, yeah.
So you know that the forest fires and eating the residential is happening there as well. So is there any cool story you'd like to share with us to shine some light?
Well, getting back to the people issue, it was interesting. We did take a trip once. Our government partnered with the Australian government because there was bushfires are prevalent in both countries. And what can we do to reduce these losses? And so I was from the U.S. side able to lead that, and we took 10 experts, scientists, along with 10 high-end firefighting, first responder types, and met down with them when they had 10 scientists and 10 firefighters. And it was really fascinating to me is that there was really no controversy between the two countries, but I saw this sort of siloed approach just happening where the firefighters from both countries, they kind of looked over there and it's like, oh, those scientists, they don't know, they don't smell like smoke, they don't get it. And the scientists, they're kind of looking down, it's like, oh, those firefighters, they're, they haven't, been all the education I have, and I was getting a little bit upset, honestly, because it's like each of these groups have a part to play. Mm-hmm. And whenever we take this siloed approach, we've got to work together. And it kind of got into me a little bit, just that sometimes it can get uncomfortable. And this is two groups that are looking at, just two groups, scientists and firefighters, how can we, reduce this issue? But, there's so many different groups that have a stake in this. We can city and regional planners, architects, builders, all these different folks. And we've got to get out of our silos because if you think like yours only way, you focus on one bit. And if you look at it, that's the only thing you're going to work with, you're doomed to fail because it is a multifaceted issue. And it can be uncomfortable, but we have got to start working together in all these different types of disciplines that have a stake in it.
Right. Yeah, and plus we get the best of it, because we can't. I always think about, I came up at a certain time in modern womanhood, where the message was be it all and do it all. And it was like, yeah, be all of who I am authentically and bring my gifts forth, but not it all. So we're sort of operating in the, we're the end all and be all, and we've got to do it ourselves, and if we push it through and everything else, and we're not really getting the full benefit of our being here together and the genius of each other, and that these different perspectives are actually bountiful, resource, and we could be resourcing each other and get the best of it rather than competing. But we're inside of these old thought forms, and it is going to take practice. It takes practice. That's why I went on the road full time, to be out living with people, because you can get the concept, but the actual practicum takes something. It takes being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It takes, because, and it's not, I think, what we project it to be, like we're uncomfortable because people are different. It's just that it's unfamiliar, and anything that's unfamiliar makes us feel, odd at first, but then you kind of get the way of it, and it becomes exciting and expansive, and and then obviously we're doing each other a disjustice if we're competing with each other, where we could be cooperating and really getting, and then we could live our lives, because these things would be handled. We wouldn't be micromanaging all the potential, tragedy and things. We'd be living with the goodness, so. On a very practical level, let's look at, what makes a house burn, what actually allows that to happen, and what can we let people in on that they might not be obvious.
Well, I think that there's a big misconception about, what is causing these homes to burn down. So I'll start with, if you start looking at the devastation in Paradise or in Malibu or Australia, all over the place, if you look at it, you see home after home after home burned to the ground. But the vegetation around it maybe scorched. In a lot of places, it's untouched.
Wow.
And so a lot of times people are thinking this is a giant tsunami wave of flame that's coming across, and that's what's kind of consuming the buildings. But that's not the case in the vast majority of instances. Most homes actually burn from the inside out during a wildfire. And you're like, how could that happen? And it's all about embers. Embers, and people forget about this. It's like they see the campfire, you kick it, you have the little embers come up. But during these wind-driven, high-intensity fires, you've got literally billions of these embers that sometimes your size of your fist or more that are just slamming up against the house. It's 60 miles an hour, is whatever the wind is going on, and sometimes just kind of overloading with all these just embers, and so they get into the house. They get in through vents in your attic. They can get through open windows, under doors, and different things. And so trying to protect yourself from embers, which you think that. It's like, I shouldn't be scared of embers. Right. What's the big deal, But you're just besieged by it. It's almost like a hurricane where you've seen where everything is coming through, the raindrops are coming sideways. Well, it's just like that, but embers during these wildfires.
So if you had the ideal setup, the fire's coming, or just the fact that you live in this area and that when you leave the house, you would, take care of certain, like closing the windows, but you would have certain seals and things around the doors. You would have certain whatever over the vents. What kind of things did people?
Well, I have a friend of mine that he's right about this. He says, you want to know where embers might get in? Take a garden hose up against your house, and anywhere water's going to get in, embers have a chance to get in there as well. So some of the easy fixes, even for homes, older homes, is just putting some type of mesh up in the attic vents, like 16th inch or smaller. So it has to be small, allows breathing, but it keeps these embers from getting inside. Other things that might consider is like where you might have leaves or other things, debris against the house, that's set up. All it takes is just one ember to get onto that area, to that area where the leaves or pine needles or other things have accumulated, and that's going to ignite the house. You never want to have fire right up against your house. It doesn't, 1 inch flames can take down a 20,000 square foot house, And so, I look at even my house, some of the things as I walk around the house, we've done a lot of things, but even things like a lawn chair, it's like a decorative lawn chair, a wicker chair outside, which is next to the house. Dog loves to sit in it. And at the same time, an ember could get into that, ignite that chair, and then it can ignite my house, even though we've done everything else, awesome.
Right.
So other things to think about, that you wouldn't think, it's like if you have a wooden fence that comes up right next to the house, this thing can be like a wick, and the main fire might have burned through 5 hours ago, but that wick, that slow burning, can kind of come up, and if it directly attaches, a wood fence attaches to the house, that's potential that you could ignite that way. So there's lots of different mechanisms. Some of the things that with the new building codes, for example, is things like having double pane windows. It's like, well, why does double pane windows help? Well, as the fire's coming through, a lot of times these windows, they expand and they crack out, and then you've got all this heat that's coming in, and then you've got all the embers coming in, and you're igniting again from the inside of the house. Double pane windows, the first one might break, but there's generally just not enough. The fire's passed by the time the second one has a chance to break out. So, things like that. Roofs are incredibly important, because you've got just this big catcher's mitt, with embers that are just raining down on it. And if you have a roof that's not fire resistant, that's a huge area. So there's lots of different building components to consider. And
this 100 feet around the house, what are those considerations about?
Well, with the defensible space, a lot of times somebody's like, I don't want to do that. That's like I'm moonscaping my area. It's like, you want me to take it down to bare rocks? Like, no. It's the most important thing is just 5 feet away from the house is to have nothing that was potentially ignitable. So you don't want to put landscaping plants right up next to your house. We've put down decomposed granite all the way around the house, just a couple 3 feet just around it, just to kind of keep anything that might
So
get on.
you start there, right around the house,
And then move out, and so for the first 30 feet, if you've got things, sort of fire resistant plants, and there are certain traits that are more fire resistant than others, so you don't want a bunch of things catching because in the landscaping, because that has potential then to ignite the house. And then afterwards, after that first 30 feet, and then if you've got enough property, then you sort of thin out your the forest or the shrubs that are around that. But by far, if you really want to stop the problem, you got to start with the house and then move outward.